Every cell in our body needs certain nutrients to function at an optimal level, and that includes our immune system. We have had such dramatic changes to our diets in the last 150 years, and our lifestyle changes have created enormous pressure for our bodies to adapt quickly. And so we're no longer exposed to sunshine on a daily basis. Many people go for days at a time before they eat a fresh fruit or a fresh vegetable. Without having the right nutrients on board, we become more susceptible to illness. When we look at, for example, stress is not just psychological, it's physiological stress. When we're exposed to pathogens, these are disease-causing microorganisms, whether they're bacteria, viruses, fungi, or even molds, that puts stress on our body, and it depletes our nutrient status faster. There's also some environmental triggers that can reduce our immune system activity and ramp up the problem of our body using up nutrients too quickly. And when we don't get enough sleep at night, that can be problematic for the immune system as well, because when we go to sleep at night, that stage 3 and stage 4 sleep is where our cells self-repair and rejuvenate. It's also when we make the most human growth hormone, which is an essential component in healing and in protection. We need to provide our body with the right tools for repair, regrowth, and revitalization. Multivitamin and mineral formulas are essential. 90% of Americans are missing at least one vitamin or mineral from their diet. 90%. 92% of Americans don't get the recommended amounts of vitamin D or vitamin E. 61% are lacking in magnesium, and 50% are lacking in calcium and vitamin A. Some of this is because of poor food choices and the impact of big food on our dietary habits, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that modern food is less nutritious. Our crops have depleted minerals. Researchers have documented that there's 11% on average less iron, 16% less copper, 25% less zinc, and 50% less selenium in crops grown today versus those in the late 1800s. So while we do not necessarily suffer from a deficiency syndrome, for example, vitamin C, if you don't get the minimum amount of vitamin C in your body every day, you will eventually develop scurvy. So when we look at deficiency syndromes, that's not what's occurring, but what we're seeing is suboptimal nutrition, and suboptimal nutrition prevents many important tasks in your body from being completed. It plays a role in reducing support of immune system function, and if your immune system is reduced even 5 or 10% on an ongoing basis, that's not a good thing. It reduces how quickly we heal. It reduces how quickly we recover. So when we look at multivitamins and minerals, they're absolutely essential. Even mild deficiency of a single nutrient alters immune function. Now, they looked at over 10,000 people. Taking a daily multivitamin was associated with up to 76% reduction in risk in nutrient deficiency. In particular, women not taking a multi were highly likely to have inadequate or deficient levels of zinc and the B vitamins. Daily multiple use is extremely important in helping to close these nutrient gaps, and yet sometimes they're not at the top of everyone's list when we talk about immune support, and it should be. Many benefits with a daily multiple include being able to maintain a healthier blood pressure. There are studies showing that daily multis can reduce the risk of cancer. In fact, in a study of women with breast cancer, they found out that using a daily multi, they had a 30% reduced risk of death compared to women who did not take a multivitamin and mineral formula. Prevention of birth defects. Spina bifida, for example, can be prevented by, well, actually not folic acid, indirectly what folic acid converts into, which is folate. Improved energy, and not just energy for you to go roller skating, but energy for your cells to withstand the stressors of being exposed to pathogens, and much better brain function. So how to choose the right and the most optimal multivitamin mineral formula. Number one, look for the active Bs. B vitamins occur in two forms. They occur in what we call the inactive form, which is what you find in most multis and in food. And then after you take them into your body, your liver turns them into the activated form. Sometimes they call it the methylated form of the B vitamins, the human form. You can't use the B vitamins until they're converted, and yet many, many people have inefficiency at converting one or more of the B vitamins into their most bioactive form. Now, some of the reasons for that can be things like type 2 diabetes, which puts stress on the liver, which interferes with conversion processes. People who have a history of drug or alcohol abuse may have certain types of liver damage. People with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. By the way, 33% of individuals over the age of 65 have non-alcoholic fatty liver changes in their liver that could interfere with the conversion of the active form of the B vitamins to convert them to the active form. And the list goes on and on. Certain medications monopolize the activity of the liver and interfere with that ability to do that conversion process. So why waste money on B vitamins that may or may not be utilizable by your body? That's why it's important to look for the active Bs. Next, minerals. Now, vitamins are tiny. They're very little and they're easier to deliver. In fact, there's a lot of mainstream companies that play on the fact that many consumers think that vitamins are all-inclusive. They'll say, you can get all the vitamins you need every single day in this teeny tiny little pill. Well, I wish that were true. You can perhaps get some vitamins, but you're not going to get minerals. If you look at some of those formulations, you'll notice that the minerals are scanty and sometimes even completely absent because minerals are huge. So in order to get meaningful amounts of minerals in the body, first you need to look for a product that's dosed more than once a day because you have nutrient needs more than once a day. We eat 3 meals a day, so we should probably be taking our multis at least twice daily. But they also need the size to be able to provide the amount of minerals that's actually going to make a difference. And look for chelated minerals. Minerals are rocks. I'm kind of generalizing here, but let's envision that they're rocks, and our body doesn't know how to absorb rocks. But if you attach them to an amino acid, which is a component of protein, then when they come scooting along the intestinal tract, all of a sudden the body says, hey, I recognize that amino acid. That's part of protein. Grabs hold of it and pulls it in and brings the mineral in with it. I like the best. There's a couple of different kinds of protein chelated minerals. I like the amino acid chelates the best. They have the best data for being able to survive gastric acid transit to deliver their mineral load once they get to the intestinal system. The next is vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial for immune system function. Make sure you look for a multi that has D in the cholecalciferol form. That is enormously more powerful than the ergocalciferol form, which is vitamin D2. Look for vitamin K2, which is the menaquinone, shown to build bones and reduce risk of heart disease. The K2 form is a very important nutrient. D-alpha tocopherol is the biologically active form of vitamin E. So avoid any multi that has synthetic forms of alpha tocopherol. Also, in mixed tocopherols, because vitamin E is a family, there's alpha, beta, delta, gamma. So when we look at mixed tocopherols, those are cousins to vitamin E, and when you give the whole family together, there's much higher benefits, especially for immune system health, than trying to use them in isolation. And again, look for a formula that should be used at least twice daily because that replicates our natural eating patterns. What to avoid? Ditch the artificial colors and flavors. We could spend an hour just talking about the damage that those have already done to individuals who were exposed to these without perhaps even their knowledge. Ditch the BHT, BHA, and other synthetic preservatives. They can have some problems. The age and gender specific formulas, not too keen on those because very often they add a smattering of botanicals to spin the product in one direction or another. This product is for women, this product is for men. I would much rather have a nutrient formula that fits everyone and then add to your protocol specific herbs or other botanicals if you are targeting a specific problem. For example, a lot of adult women's formulas, so women over 50 formulas contain a little bit of black cohosh. Black cohosh is an herb that's implicated for helping with menopausal changes. Awesome. But it's also a little bit pricey to get good standardized black cohosh. So Do you want a multivitamin and mineral formula that gives you a couple milligrams of black cohosh that's unstandardized that may be doing nothing? Or do you want to just get a nutrient formula that is elite nutrition for both genders? And then if you need help with a menopausal transition, add on a clinically studied, standardized black cohosh formula. So I hate to just pick on that one, but you get the idea that what we need to do is have a basic human formulation that fits everyone and then customize it with additional products if needed. Ditch the gummies. There's not very much in a gummy that it can deliver. They're low on vitamins and almost non-existent on minerals. They're expensive. You pay a lot of money to get gummies because they're delicious. I will admit that. They're yummy. They taste like candy. You pay a lot of money for just a little bit of nutrient, whereas if you were delivering it in another form, you get much higher levels of nutrition. They also have a lot of sugar in them, and some of them are made with high fructose corn syrup, which is not a very, healthy. Not that any sugar is necessarily all that healthy for the body, but the body processes high fructose corn syrup differently than it does other types of sugars and can be very problematic. Next, in addition to having the best of the best with elite nutrition with a multivitamin and mineral formula that checks all the boxes, we have our omega-3 fatty acids. Now, a lot of people, when they think omega-3 fatty acids, they think fish oil. Well, that's not necessarily omega-3 fatty acids. Fish fat, fish oil, is a transporter mechanism for omega-3s. There are a variety of ways to get omega-3s in the body, including phospholipid delivery. But let's talk about how they work with the immune system. Now, the two most dominant omega-3 fatty acids from fish are EPA and DHA, and these are incorporated into the cellular membrane of every single immune cell that has ever been investigated. So we're looking at the B cells, T cells, neutrophils, granulocytes, macrophages, NK cells. The NK is natural killer cells. They have been shown to increase phagocytosis. Now, phagocytosis, if you remember the game Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, when you look at things like macrophages, they gobble up pathogenic organisms and kill them. So we want to increase phagocytosis. It increased it by 62%. It increases the total amount of B cells, so you can boost B cell numbers. B cells are adaptive immunity, which means they are the scholars of the immune system. They're the smarty pants. B cells learn what is going on with a virus and make antibodies specifically to that pathogen. So we really need our B cells in order to come up with a specific instead of a generalized immune system response. Omega-3 fatty acids are critical for brain function. They also reduce inflammation. When we look at some of the impact of immune system issues, especially some of the viruses that are going around today, one of the issues we see is unchecked inflammation because of infection. That can be very problematic with breathing. Omega-3 fatty acids help form resolvins and protectants that resolve the inflammatory processes in several areas of the body. And omega-3s are precursors to endocannabinoid formation. And this is really important because they also, in addition to that, modulate that connection. And we know that the endocannabinoid system also helps regulate our immune system. So lots of ways that omega-3 fatty acids impact our immune system function without perhaps we even know it. Now, when we look at omega-3 supplementation, first, if you eat food, or if you eat fish, eat several servings of cold water fatty fish every week. But you have to be a little cautious because, unfortunately, the cold water fatty fish also store some things in their fat, heavy metals, PCBs, et cetera, et cetera. Or you can supplement with a phospholipid bioidentical omega-3 from salmon instead of the triglyceride-based fish oils. The difference is that in triglyceride-based fish oils, and all fish oils are triglyceride carriers, we have an altered molecular form. It is no longer bioidentical EPA and DHA. And there are studies that have shown that cells uptake and utilize DHA in its human form, in its bioactive form,
up to 10 times more effectively than when it's in its altered form, when it's in its twisted form. Triglyceride fish oils are not very well absorbed, so you have to take a lot to get a little bit of benefits. There's some contamination issues. There's certainly some sustainability concerns. Some people struggle with aftertaste, burping, indigestion, and upset stomach. There's also high levels of acidity in some of the fish oils on the market. It's time to put this old-fashioned delivery system in the closet and start to focus on newer, more effective, less problematic delivery systems. That's why I love the phospholipid omega-3 system. This is sourced exclusively from salmon. It has much better absorption, up to 50 times better absorption, according to CACO2 studies. It has the omega-3s exactly in their bioidentical form so that there's better utilization. So you don't have to take as much either. You can take a smaller dose and get benefits. Now that we've talked about basics and foundational support, let's talk a little bit about targeted immune system support. Now, you've heard me use the word pathogen before, and as I said, that's a disease-causing microorganism. So when we look at bacteria, viruses, fungus, sometimes molds are part of the fungal family, and parasites, they all cause, they're different kinds of cells, and they cause different kinds of infections. Now, bacteria and parasites are both more like the animal kingdom. They ingest food, and they excrete food, and they procreate. It's just, they're a little bit more like what we're used to dealing with when we do research, that they're more like animal-based living organisms. When we look at fungi and mold, those are like plants. They have a lot more in common with the plant kingdom. But when it comes to viruses, it's almost as if they were from outer space because they're not like anything else. They're very, very different. For a long time, scientists couldn't even agree if viruses were alive or not. Number one, viruses can't do anything on their own. All they can do is hang out until they get inside a host. Then the only thing that they can do is to attach themselves to a human cell, get inside. First they have to attach, then they have to get inside. And that's when all the bad stuff happens, because now the virus takes over the control center of the cell. And instead of the cell fulfilling its normal functions, it tells the cell to make more virus particles, more viruses. So viruses can't replicate on their own. Viruses have to hijack a living cell and take over the command center in order to do that. So they are very unusual. So when researchers are investigating ways to kill microorganisms that are pathogenic when people are ill, let's add a little bit easier time developing medications that are antibacterial, antibiotics, antifungal, as well, anti-parasitic medications. But people have not been, doctors, despite years and years of research, have really struggled with coming up with effective medications to treat and kill viruses. Now, viruses cause the common cold. That's called a rhinovirus. The common cold is usually not problematic for anyone. Viruses cause, the herpes family of viruses cause things like, herpes simplex, type 1, and herpes genitalis, type 2. Also, they can cause herpes zoster, causes chickenpox and shingles. So there are other viral illnesses, but the ones that we're talking about quite recently, and the ones that affect the most people, are influenza viruses, because influenza viruses can be as mild can be, or they can be downright deadly, and they're harder to deal with. So bacteria, as I said, some bacteria are even useful. We have healthy bacteria in our gut that helps us with digestion. Less than 1% of bacteria causes diseases, and they can reproduce on their own. But viruses are almost all harmful to humans. They cannot survive without a host. They have to steal genetic material in order to reproduce. This either destroys the cell or it can turn it into a cancerous cell. It usually targets specific cells in the body, like liver or blood, for example. That's why we struggle so much when we have a viral epidemic, whether it's influenza or other types of viruses. Now, natural products can really help in this situation because it can help with immune modulation, which means it helps the immune system make better decisions. It can also shunt resources to certain parts of the immune system to strengthen the immune defense. So we've got immune modulating, immune strengthening, but then we also have products that are immune stimulating. This tells the immune system to call out the troops and start making more white blood cells, which are our soldiers, in order for the body to have more troops on board to fight back. And last but not least, there are certain natural products that are directly antiviral or antibacterial, or sometimes both, and they kill the pathogens directly instead of indirectly. So one of the things that we have seen with this recent outbreak is that immune sections in stores have become incredibly depleted. People have bought out all the echinacea. People have bought out all the elderberry. I've even heard from some places that they've bought out all the vitamin C and zinc lozenges, etc. So things that are marketed or are directed towards immune system support may no longer be available, and it may be weeks, months, or several months before these types of products are available again. So it's time to think outside the box with some other interventions that can have incredibly powerful benefits in helping us with both protection and recovery. First is vitamin and mineral support. Now, we talked about multivitamins, getting a good, essential multivitamin and mineral formula on board, and that's very important. But there are certain call-outs that, like vitamins A, D, and K especially, and also with calcium. So when we look at what our needs might be, calcium is not just for bone building. Both herpes simplex, that's cold sore viruses, and shingles viruses like to hide in nerve and epithelial tissue. But when calcium is depleted from these tissues, the mucous membranes weaken and viruses reactivate. So anytime the immune system is weakened, viruses have an opportunity to activate. And what depletes calcium from soft tissues? That would be stress, sun, and sugar. So when we look at exposure, if we were experiencing a lot of stress, or you're out in the sun for long periods of time, or you eat foods that are high in sugar, we reduce our tissue calcium, not our bone calcium, our tissue calcium, which most people are not talking about. But that's incredibly important. So you need to replenish these tissues with a form of calcium called calcium lactate. This is the specific antiviral form of calcium. When you use it in combination with magnesium and zinc, it can prevent and treat cold sores and fever blisters. It can prevent sunburn. It can relieve muscle cramps and restless legs and stop dry nighttime cough, especially in kids. A lot of kids have that chronic cough at bedtime. So making sure that our tissues are replete with calcium, especially if we've had any of these other exposures that depletes the tissue of calcium, is important. So a good dose, probably anywhere from 1 to probably 4 times a day, might be calcium lactate 250 with 50 milligrams of magnesium and around 6 milligrams of zinc. That's a really useful formula for individuals who may be depleted in tissue calcium. Now, when we look specifically at vitamins A, D, K, A, D, and K are incredibly important to helping either directly with viruses or indirectly via inflammatory pathways. Vitamin A, especially in its retinol form versus retinol, is potently antiviral. It has been shown to reduce mortality associated with a whole host of infectious diseases, measles, mumps, HIV, all of these different kinds of viral illnesses. Vitamin A plays a role. As I said, vitamin A is directly antiviral. Vitamin D is also directly antiviral. Deficiency of vitamin D is associated with an increased risk for flu and respiratory tract infections. So getting enough D on board and getting it in the right form is crucially important. And vitamin K2, even though it's better known for cardiovascular health, improves immune health because it decreases these compounds called pro-inflammatory mediators. And when you have a viral infection, one of the risks of that viral infection is having a huge response with inflammation that itself starts to become damaging. And by reducing these pro-inflammatory mediators, those earlier upstream dominoes before they fall can have very beneficial effects on the long-term outcome. Now, usually when we're talking about influenza of any type, we're also talking about using botanicals to help prevent and also to help recover. And adaptogens are incredibly important with that. Now, adaptogens, one of the things about adaptogens, and I love this photo because it perfectly illustrates it's all about balance. You take away one part and the whole structure falls. Adaptogens do not push up. Adaptogens do not push down. Adaptogens push towards normal. They push towards healthy. Adaptogens are named adaptogens because they help your body adapt to stress. Now, I'm not talking about stress that your boss yelled at you, or stress that your kids are all arguing, although those are indeed stressors. I'm talking about physiological stress. If you are locked outside your house and it's 10 degrees below zero, you are under stress. It's not a psychological stress, it's a physical stress of the cold, but your body has to adapt to that stress to protect itself, to ensure your survival. If you are exposed to any pathogen, whether it's bacteria, viral, yeast, or mold, your body has to adapt to that stressor so that it can protect itself and ensure survival. So when we talk about adaptogens, it's not just about energy and physiological stress. It's about the body's ability to resist the stress of pathogenic microorganisms. So they are potent immune system modulators, which means they help the immune system make better decisions. They help keep the adrenal glands strong. Some of my favorites, first, ashwagandha. Ashwagandha has been used for millennia in Ayurvedic medicine, and it's been found to regulate 15 different immune system pathways. So unlike a drug that goes into the body and does one thing, ashwagandha does a multitude of activities, all of which nudge towards health. It's especially effective at keeping immune system activity strong, even when your body's under assault. Preliminary research shows it has direct antiviral effects. As a bonus, yes, indeed, ashwagandha helps keep you a little bit more, helps keep your mood modulated as well. Rhodiola rosea, has a long history of use for boosting immunity. And when we look at how rhodiola boosts immunity, one of the studies that we see was on the Ebola virus, and that is shown to help keep the virus from being able to penetrate the cell. So remember when I told you about viruses and how viruses are able to attach to cells and then they have to get inside the cell so that they can hijack the cell? Well, this is really important. So when we talk about finding an herb that prevents a virus from penetrating the cell, that is incredibly useful in helping to treat that exposure. If I were to name one herb that's the king of all the adaptogens, I would probably have to say red ginseng. Red ginseng has been used also for millennia. It was a favorite of the Chinese emperors. Aged ginseng root that had been in the ground and survived for more than a decade was worth its weight in gold. So when we look at the ability of ginseng to promote vitality and health, there's so many different mechanisms by which it achieves these goals. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled study of 100 different healthy volunteers, they looked at the ability of red ginseng to prevent acute respiratory infection, cold and flus, viral illnesses. The ginseng group had 12 infections, and the placebo group had 22 infections. So just in prevention, it was able to, just the use of red ginseng, cut the amount of infections nearly in half. Also, of those individuals in the ginseng group that did develop a viral illness, their illnesses were of less severity and shorter duration. This is something that should be on board every single day. Now, there's compounds in ginseng beyond the ginsenosides called polysaccharides that are themselves very active against viruses. Now, this is an animal model of the H1N1, which we call avian flu, and the H1N1 is the swine flu, and H3N2. So when we look at these different polysaccharides, from ginseng, they help to promote the survival of the animal. So if you look in the lower left-hand corner, up until day 6, both the mock group did not receive herbs. The GP group did receive herbs. We see that the mock group starts to have a die-off. The survival rates between day 6 and day 8 dropped down to about 40% of the animals survived. 100% of the animals survived in the ginseng saccharide group. After infection, when they looked at titers, or the amount of viral particles in the lungs, they found that the mock group had 3 times or more the level of virus activity in lung tissue versus the ginseng group. So really, even though these are animal models, really encouraging information that will help individuals get some extra botanical support on board in these difficult times. Another excellent botanical is called Andrographis. It's known as the king of the bitters, and it's not because it was named for its contribution to flavor. It's because in Ayurveda and in other traditional systems of medicine, the tasting of bitter was something of a indicator of the power of the herb for medicine. So king of the bitters is like saying that Andrographis is the king of the herbal medicines. It modulates the immune system. It is not a strong stimulator of the immune system. It triggers production of T cells. Now, lack of T cells, especially in older adults, make them much more vulnerable to viral infections. So when I say immune stimulation, it's not the same as calling out all the troops. It seems to be fairly specific to the activity of T cells and is much more of an immune modulator. It's also very effective against lung infections. Dosage rates would be around 400 milligrams of Andrographis with at least 80 milligrams of antigrapholites. I would have this on board at least twice daily. Another interesting natural compound that can be quite useful during these viral outbreaks is Amla. It is antiviral, antioxidant. It has both anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer activity. Its other name is Indian gooseberry. Now, components of Amla like quercetin, ellagic acid, gallic acid have all been shown to have immune modulating properties. Amla contains a high proportion of these compounds called polyphenols, and also, let's say it all together, elegotannins, which have potent antioxidant properties. These elegotannins are close to some of the compounds that we also find in green tea. We have ellagic tannins in green tea and some ellagic acid as well. In an animal model, Amla increased the activity of endogenous antioxidant enzymes. So when we look at these enzymes that play a role in helping to diffuse oxidative damage, now that may sound sort of technical and distant, but many viral illnesses, one of the ways in which they cause illness is via oxidative stress. So having compounds that are specifically shown to be effective against certain types of oxidative stress can be highly beneficial. So Amla has been shown to be useful for Coxsackie, for hepatitis B, for human papillomavirus, human immunodeficiency virus, and influenza A viruses. They prevent the virus from attaching to host cells. They inhibit the DNA binding for replication, and they increase the antioxidant status so that the cells can fight back. Last, but absolutely certainly not least, is curcumin. Curcumin has been nicknamed Indian gold because it has so much power to improve our health in so many different ways. Not only can curcumin help kill the virus directly, help strengthen our immune system to fight off attacks, it also is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory herbs on the planet, if not the most powerful, in that it touches every single pathway, avenue of inflammatory activity in the body, every single one of them. And when we look at some of the dangers, some of the significant dangers of viral illnesses, it's overactivation of inflammatory response. So when we look at its antiviral activity, specifically about the lungs, curcumin has demonstrated activity against a wide range of human pathogens, not just flu viruses, influenza viruses, but the hepatitis C virus, HIV, and strains of the Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which are not viruses but are pathogens. In an animal model of influenza, curcumin increased the survival rate. It reduced measures of lung pathology. So not only did it help more animals stay alive, even though they were infected, it also reduced the problems with the lungs, so it improved lung activity, reduced the amount of viruses in the lung tissue, and improved the condition of the lungs after influenza infection, so the lungs recovered more quickly and without permanent adverse effects. Curcumin directly inactivates the influenza virus and can significantly inhibit influenza viral replication. It also prevents damage to the lungs because it's able to intervene in reducing inflammatory cytokines. So one of the risks we see in some of the people that have struggles with any kind of influenza viral infection is something called a cytokine storm, which is a huge reaction of the body where the very high levels of inflammation that the body produces in response to the virus itself becomes life-threatening. So I believe that curcumin is a gem and is certainly a centerpiece of any kind of immune system protocol for helping people stay healthy, or if they become ill, to make sure that they recover as expeditiously as possible. I think that curcumin blended with turmeric essential oil is one mechanism by which it's been proven to boost absorption, so you don't have to take dozens of pills. When you look at enhanced absorption curcumin, I would say somewhere between 750 milligrams 2 to 3 times daily. If a person was really struggling with a lot of inflammation, they could certainly increase that dosage. So in conclusion, we need to have a foundation to keep our immune system strong. Healthy levels of exercise, choosing the right foods, managing our stress, all very important. Additionally, we have foundational nutrients. We need a multivitamin and mineral formula that contains essential nutrients in their proper and most elite forms in order to have the best possible nutritional status. Omega-3s are also incredibly crucial for helping our immune system foundational to be able to be strong and to resist assault. And then we have all of the botanicals that we've discussed today that are useful for targeted immune support, that are incredibly useful for individuals who are trying to protect themselves or individuals who perhaps are ill and are trying to get better as fast and healthy as possible. So if you would like to look at some examples of some healthy diets or have individuals to which you'd like to refer, please visit us at terrytalksnutrition.com/diet, and we can talk about some ways to cut sugar out of your diet and eat in a more healthy manner. That itself also boosts immune system activity. You might want to pay attention to restoring a healthy intestinal environment. Don't forget your probiotics. This is not the time to take a break from any of these incredibly beneficial products. And make sure you support your adrenal gland. Adrenal extract is useful. We talked about ashwagandha and rhodiolas with regards to virus and viral activity. It's also incredibly useful for your adrenal glands to stay strong. Remember, your adrenal glands provide you with the emergency energy you need to fight back against stress. And if you are ill with a virus, that is a type of stressor on your body. Well, I thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day to learn more about nutrients we may not have thought about that play a very crucial role in helping us to stay healthy, whether it's in the midst of a viral outbreak or whether we're traveling or whatever situation we're in when we're exposed to new pathogens. But it also is some good ideas for helping people stay healthy every day as well. I hope you'll join us again for another Terry Talks Nutrition educational webinar. Please visit us at terrytalksnutrition.com, where you'll find informative articles, recordings of past webinars, and also a chance to ask your own specific health questions. Take care, everyone. Stay healthy, and my best to you all. Bye-bye.